It's Monday, the 15th of November. A new week has started, the week that I need to pass my written test. So I spent my weekend quite a bit of learning. And I hope that you guys at least had a good time relaxing and enjoying some off time. Now, we had today, apart from learning and preparing yourself for the test, we had one of our plus-minus final lessons regarding cross-country flying. And during that lesson, I really developed more and more huge amount of respect for the early aviators. The early aviators had all sorts of challenges, and apart from the I would say kind of like early development of airplanes that they needed to fly, navigation was also very, very challenging at that time. And today we have the benefit and the great help of GPS and of all sorts of different navigation computers and so forth. However, at that time, it was quite challenging. And I will show you quickly how challenging navigation is when you need to navigate without GPS and without all sorts of navigation aids. So I will happily demonstrate that here quickly, how this process works. So this is an aviation map for pilots. And it shows the middle section of Florida. So here we have on the left hand side we have Tampa, the Tampa region, Clearwater, and then on the right hand side we have the Atlantic coast here reaching down to West Palm Beach, and then even further below to Miami. Now I'm staying here in Vero Beach, which is this airport here. So this is the airport that I'm operating from, or hopefully will operate from. And let's assume I would need to travel from Vero Beach with my airplane over to Tampa. So flying across Florida over to Tampa International here. So let's assume I need to fly over to Tampa. Now, what would I do? I would take the plotter here, and I would put the plotter onto the airport here of Vero Beach, and then over to Tampa, to the region of Tampa. And then what I would do is I would then correct to align the wheel here. Exactly that I would be able to read from the plotter here the degrees. So in that case, it would be 280 degrees. And that would be ultimately the true course. So line on the map between 2 points. That would result in the true course. So that means that would be my starting point. Now, if you feel like you can sit here into an airplane and you can just take off and then fly over with a course heading of 280 degrees, and you would reach Tampa, you would be quite mistaken. What do you need to calculate in order to actually get to Tampa? So the true course is only the starting point. What you will need to do is you will need to correct that true course by the wind correction. So that means, let's assume you have, this is the airplane, and you have a northerly wind from the northern. So what would happen if you would have the true course of 280? If you had a strong northern wind, this would happen basically. You would head towards 280 degrees, but you would just drift over here and end up in the region of southwest Florida in Fort Myers instead of Tampa. Okay, so that's the reason why we need to understand from which angle the wind is blowing, and then accordingly adjust our heading. So that means we need to calculate that actually. And how do we calculate? That's exactly what we do with the E6B. And here we take the back side of it, and then start here with a point, let's say, for example, 100 knots. That would be our estimated speed. And then we would need to say, okay, we are traveling at 100 knots. And we would put, for example, here with 20, with the 20 wind, with the headwind, for example, we need to plot it out and then kind of like start adjusting. It's a bit difficult to demonstrate that right now, but then kind of like see how that point then moves over. And by that correction, then you can read from here, from the 10 degrees or 20 degrees, depending on kind of like how much the wind comes from which angle, etc., which is then exactly explained here, what steps you need to take. You would need then to correct accordingly your angle, which would result in a true heading. And the true heading would be then exactly that angle or that heading that you would need to have, or you need to maintain in order to, with the corresponding wind, how you would be able to travel across Florida over to Tampa. So now we have the true heading, but that's not all. So then into play comes the variation. What is the variation? The variation is the difference between the true north, the true North Pole, which is the North Pole that all our maps aim towards, and the actual magnetic North Pole, which is not the same. If you're interested in that aspect of science, please watch one of the many YouTube videos that are available. So again, we have to adjust that, and we actually see kind of like the difference on this kind of like gentle line here, this 7 west that goes here, you see here, this is kind of like the true North Pole, or aiming for the true. And then we have slightly offset here, we have another line with like this 7 west, meaning the true the magnetic North Pole is actually kind of 7 degrees to the west. So that means for us, we have to again calculate that as well into our calculation, into our flight planning calculation. So we need to consider that. Yeah, and then we have ultimately the magnetic heading. And that's not all. So now we know at least kind of like how we would need to travel, considering the wind correction, considering that the magnetic north is not the true North Pole. And now we need to consider, and this is kind of like the deviation based on the aircraft, we would need to consider that the aircraft has also some interference with our compass, and each aircraft has a different deviation. That means this is all being measured and then ultimately being displayed in the aircraft. Specifically, how you would need to change again from a magnetic heading, change again your heading in order to compensate for the, for example, metal and electric deviations that happen and that influence the compass in your aircraft. And once we have done that, we actually get the course heading. And the course heading would give us then the right heading to travel from here over all the way to Tampa, considering wind, considering the variation, and considering the aircraft that we are in. So, that said, it is a huge amount of calculation, and so many things can go wrong. And specifically for the wind, you have to constantly adjust, obviously, your wind calculation. As you can imagine, the wind is not the same here on the western side of Florida as the same here on the eastern side. And then on top of that comes also the variation. So the variation will also change as you travel across a continent, for example. And so we can also be very thankful that today we have tools like ForeFlight, where we can just kind of like plot in where we know exactly where we are at. And we can load our flight plan in here, and the flight plan will tell us exactly kind of like how to get from Vero Beach over to Tampa in one easy couple of clicks. And we'll always kind of like then correct for the right weather, because the weather is always automatically loaded. So for example, here you can see some rain, and then you can add also the wind and so forth. So very, very easy today to navigate that. And that's all kind of like on an iPad, and you can easily navigate today across a continent or on a specific route. All right, so that's it regarding the navigation. And with that very briefly explained, I hope you feel the same way that I do, with like having a huge amount of respect for the early aviators of this world that traveled with airplanes across all these different challenges with variations and wind corrections and deviations and weather and so forth. And so I really kind of like developed a huge amount of humbleness for how we navigate today, and what benefits we are able to enjoy today compared to all the aviators back in the days, and also all the navigators of this earth that explored the earth with very simple means of navigation. So that's it for today. I hope you were able to learn a bit more about what I'm learning at this moment. And again, this week is going to be the written test. So I hope I'm able to get this sorted out as soon as possible this week. All right, so stay tuned, and I'll keep you posted how I'm able to navigate my written exam. Till then, bye-bye, and thanks for watching.